So welcome everybody to this Digital Humanities Hangout, jointly organised by the University of Lancaster, Ghent University and the new university in Lisbon. I can't believe this is the last DH Hangout of this semester already. That seems to have flown by. And for this session, we're delighted to welcome Dr. Sarah Oberblijker, who is from the Department of Contemporary History at the University of Innsbruck. So Sarah has got a great academic profile, both in Austria and internationally as well. She completed her PhD at the University of Innsbruck on labour migration in the South Tyrol since the Second Autonomy Statute of 1972. And she's most recently been working on the International Horizon 2020 project, NewsEye, related to the digital investigator for historical newspapers. And today she's going to be sharing with her experience of the digital methods for corpus building, tracing migration discourses in the historical newspapers. So very warm welcome, Sarah. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very nice introduction. As Sally already said, I'm a historian and I'm working on migration-related topics. Actually, I'm a historian that uses qualitative methods. So I'm doing a lot of close reading and work very closely with the sources. And of course, now you might wonder why I'm using digital methods then at all. So I'm using digital methods to actually create my corpora. I'm working with historical newspapers. As Sally said, I was working in the international project of NewsEye. So we had huge historical newspaper libraries we were able to access. And I was also mainly working with German-speaking newspapers available from the Austrian National Library Anno, and Anno actually has a collection of historical newspapers of over 23 million digitized pages, also accessible via keyword search. So it's actually a huge collection we were working with. So I needed to find methods actually to extract newspaper clippings in this huge collection, which are interesting and also important for my own research. So as I said, I'm working on migration topics, and I wanted to find newspaper clippings within this huge collection, and actually had quite a struggle with to extract those articles, to build my corpora, which I could further investigate doing qualitative research. I'm specialized on discourse analysis, also argumentation analysis. So I'm trying to build corpora that have good quality, that I can further investigate and that I can close read and that I can find important discourses and of course patterns inside those corpora. But for my first step is always I need to build those corpora. And today, and here I'm coming to my overview, I just want to present some of my work I did. First step is just shortly introducing digital methods for the heuristic research step. Then I'm talking a little bit about representativeness and the quality of specialized corpora. I'm showing two of my case studies. So my first case study was I've tried to create a corpus covering the return migration discourses in Austrian historical newspapers. Return migration means that that people that emigrated at some point returned back to the country of origin. All of this belongs to the topic of return migration, and I was very interested in the discourses on people that returned back to their countries. And my second case study was creating a corpus covering specific genres, discourses on emigration. So with emigration here, I mean, when I'm looking in the Austrian newspapers, I mean the emigration of people from Austria, but also Europe to overseas countries. And actually wanted to find out what kind of discourses are within this huge emigration discourses kind of genres. For example, I wanted to know more about the financial discourse, also more about advertisements within this talking about immigration. And then I'm presenting slightly some methods that can improve representativeness of corpora, and then going specific into topic modeling for the corpus building, which I mainly use. So I was mainly working with topic modeling and also in connection with Jupyter notebooks and how I was working with that, and showing some limitations, of course, too. So yeah, digital methods for the heuristic research step, especially like for the corpus building, digital methods, and also especially natural language processing methods, which can be understood as methods to understand natural text or also spoken words. They are seldom brought together, and but it's an important part of the heuristic research step for historians. So there's basically these three steps: the heuristic step, then the source criticism, and the interpretation of sources. And in this heuristic step, historians elaborate on the research questions. They try to find, select, and also collect primary source material which they want further work with. So this is actually one important research step, also with digital sources, of course. So before even especially like for historians that work with specific topics, like me working on migration-related topics, it's important in this first heuristic step to actually create a collection I can further work with. Actually, I can answer my research questions on. My motivation, of course, was to create empirical material for further research. I already mentioned my goal was to do qualitative research after creating the collection. So I basically needed this collection on my computer, where I then did close reading and further analysis, not using digital methods as much anymore. Still combination a little bit of quantitative and qualitative research, but mainly close reading in the next step. But first I needed to create this empirical material, as already mentioned. And in the recent years, we could see that there was actually a good development towards better OCR and also article separation, which actually even made it possible to extract specific articles from historical newspapers. Because especially when you do like qualitative research on newspapers, you need the articles. You do not need the full issue. You also need do not need the full page. I mean, you need it for context, but you also want to create this one article, specific article, you want to extract it to build your corpus. And article separation made this possible, even though article separation is still quite error prone, but that has been happening quite a lot in the recent years. But this is actually very important to even make it possible to extract articles without copying, pasting, and within like very time-consuming processes. And I needed good quality corpora. That means that not every corpus actually is suited for further qualitative research. Not every corpus can just be used for further qualitative research. And here I'm talking about representativeness and also the quality of this specialized corpora. So this is actually that every historian basically is looking into the corpus representative? Is it the quality good enough? But especially when working with digital sources and also huge amount of courses, there are even some additional criteria historians and researchers have to look into. First, there is external criteria for the quality and representativeness, which means first I need to ask myself, are the sources I'm using reliable? This is something that every historian has to ask when they're using sources. But then I also need to ask, is the collection I'm using, like I'm use the collection of the National Library in Austria, like the newspaper, historical newspaper collection, and need to ask myself, are all important newspapers there, which I need to answer my research question, are some important issues missing out? And actually there were some important issues missing out. So but then you have kind of to look into, can this corpus actually answer your research question in a valid way? And then, of course, the quality of the data, especially with digital sources, it means the OCR quality. So the better the OCR quality, of course, the better also the corpus building, because when using keywords and I cannot find the specific newspaper clipping, then they're kind of lost for my corpus. And there are further internal criteria, which actually refers to the size of a collection. So when keywords are being used to create specialized collections, imagine you want to create a collection on immigration topics or issues, you would use maybe the word immigration or migration and try to find like related word that actually would give you articles that talk about migration. But researchers often have to wait up between a collection that misses either relevant articles or one that contains noise. So sometimes when there are keywords being used that are too narrow, because I mean they lead to good results, but they leave a lot of other things out. So they're not covering the whole spectrum of the topic. Or you'll find articles or your keywords actually lead to a lot of articles that are not relevant to your research question. This means that your collection in the end contains noise, which can be complicated then if you do further analysis. So far to the external criteria external criteria and the internal criteria for representativeness and quality, which are important for creating a corpus. And of course, the question is now how to get to a good quality, a corpus of good quality and representativeness. And as often or mostly with digital sources, corpus building depends on good keywords. And here comes also the but, because doing keyword search can be quite difficult. There's alternative spellings, there are abbreviations, there's polysemy, changing word usage, idioms, or misspellings that actually can make the full text keyword quite difficult. But this is only one part of the problem, because often keywords that are being used are actually topics that are being tried to find concepts that are difficult to find with single keywords. One of those topics, for example, is the one I had, the return migration topics. It was not possible to reduce this topic to some single keywords. And there's, of course, word flexions, and you can imagine in German, this is even more complicated. So you have to find a lot of different combination of words and to look for them. And this can be quite error prone. And the last problem is actually the ambiguity. So words can have different meanings when they are used in different contexts. So there's quite a lot of words that have different meanings in different contexts. So it does not mean that one word in this context means the same in the other context. These are some of the problems which I am going in now with actually trying to show with my case studies. So this from the theoretical aspect, but I'm trying to be more practical now. So I already presented the two case studies, the one on return migration discourses and the other one on the creating a corpus on specific genres discourses on immigration. So starting with case study one, the return migration case, and why keyword search alone was not sufficient for me. So as you might have already noticed, I was using, of course, German keywords, as the corpus or the historical newspapers are German, and so in German for return migration, there are a few very clear keywords, such as Rückwanderer, which means returnees, or Heimkehrer, that's also a word for returnees. But actually, those keywords leave out most of the discourse. So they do not even cover the half of the discourse on return migration. So not every time when there's when newspapers talk about return migration, the words Rückwanderer or Heimkehrer are being used. And then, of course, I was trying to combine words like returning home, for example. I also using more ambiguous words like return migration, which in German is an ambiguous word. But they were leading to a lot of false positives. What does it mean to have false positives? So returning home does not always mean that it's talking about return migration. There's also returning students home from going on their school way back home, and also return migration can actually be in very different places. So just trying to show you one example. So it's first in German, but I also have the English translation here. So the first example is the term Rückwanderung, which is return migration, which is actually relevant for my research question. And here you can see it's talking about return migration of people that emigrated to New York, and after the crisis they tried to return back to Austria-Hungary. So this text is actually very relevant for my research when I'm dealing with return migration. Very interested in those discourses on people that returned back to Austria-Hungary. You see here, a time when Austria-Hungary was still existent. And this is an example here with the same word, Rückwanderung, return migration, but it's not relevant for my research question. So this article basically talks about the tide that is migrating back to its primeval waters. So it's a very, very different context, but containing the same words. So I was confronted with the question, how actually could I exclude those I don't need for my research question and keep those that are relevant or interesting for my research question? So yeah, how can I find actually the right content? Right for my research question. It always depends on the research question, of course. But yeah, how can I sort out the other ones? And this was basically the question I started with when I tried to find methods, to continue. And before I'm going to solutions that I found, showing you the second case study. This was the one creating a corpus on specific genres or discourses on emigration. And also here, keyword search alone was not sufficient. Actually, I was trying to kind of like connect the word emigration and other words that actually have the same meaning, like emigration. I was trying to connect them with words that actually would lead me to specific genres. But this is very time-consuming and actually too error-prone, because it's impossible to find like all possible combinations of words. And even then, if I find some combinations that actually would lead me to some good articles, very often they do not. It's, for example, if I would like to find advertisement and I combine emigration with selling, for example, does not mean that I would get like articles or advertisements on emigration, because selling can be in any context. So it's quite actually even impossible to extract financial discourses, political discourses, or advertisements from the whole immigration discourse, just by using keywords. Also because there are no single specific words that indicate a genre or discourse. So this was basically the problem I was dealing with in this case study. So both case studies are different in some sense. So the other one was dealing with words that have different meanings in different contexts, and this one is actually more. It's impossible to find, to find those discourses genres just with keyword search. And in both cases, I kind of was confronted with the question, how can I continue without like spending months of manually collecting articles, which is impossible if you have so many articles. Just reminding, I was working with 23 million pages, so there's the keyword search just remains very difficult here. And then I was thinking about methods to improve representativeness. I'm not going into all of those, just presenting them and going into those which I was using, which are the last ones here. So actually some very well-known methods to improve representativeness, especially like improve keyword search, are from the information retrieval area. It's Boolean searches, of course, like the combination of words I already talked about, that I can combine specific words, or even like combine specific words in a specific context, which I also used a lot, which can be very, very helpful. But as I already mentioned, this can impose bias because I have to choose this keywords, a lot of keywords, and trying to combine them, and yeah, it's quite possible to miss some important words, and to leave some out. Another method from the information retrieval is actually the relative query term relevance method, the RQTR method. It's also a method that actually builds on keywords and a combination of keywords, but it's kind of mathematical. So it actually tries to have like a main keyword, like for example, migration, and then trying to find keywords that also lead to articles on migration if you combine them. So the method actually is that you try to calculate how many articles that are relevant for my research question are retrieved by a specific word if I combine it. And if it's more relevant articles, then I will include it because it's good for my collection. But if more of the findings are not relevant, I will exclude it because it will produce noise. So it's kind of mathematical. I will calculate how relevant is the combination of words, and then trying to continue like this. It's quite elaborate though. Then, of course, there's named entity recognition and linking, like together, which can be used for disambiguation, which means like, especially with the linking, I can actually find out what is the meaning of this specific word, which is used like especially for persons, but also of course for places. But this only helps when person names or places, organizations are included. But for example, with the topic on migration, which is not a named entity, this is not very helpful. And then there's the natural language processing methods that can be used actually to improve representativeness to actually support the keyword search. One is, for example, topic modeling or word embedding, which try to analyze the distribution of semantic word groups or semantic similarity, which can be very helpful. For example, word embedding can be very good used to find words that are semantically similar to the words. For example, I could try to find semantically similar words to migration, and then I would find quite a lot of words maybe I did not even think of, and keywords, and this could help the search of keywords a lot. And also, of course, topic modeling, which I will explain further, and similarity-based word sense disambiguation methods, which means these are methods that try to disambiguate words that have several meanings, and also topic modeling can use for this. So as the downside here I was noting, of course, those methods are methodologically a little bit more demanding. So yeah, going to explain a little bit topic modeling and the use for corpus building. Topic modeling was finally the method I chose for the corpus building, and this has several reasons, but mostly because it actually really worked well, and for me it worked in my context and with my topics it worked best. So what is topic modeling at all? It's a method that analyzes the distribution of semantic word groups and is very well actually suited for classification matters. And even though topic modeling is actually mostly used to more obvious but also hidden topics within a collection, the results are sometimes quite difficult to interpret. And they're very much affected by both the choice of the parameters, and also the built-in stochastic process. So actually using topic modeling to find topics can be sometimes really difficult, because it depends on the parameters. You can get very different topics. And actually I did quite a lot close reading of topics that I found, and I often learned that my first impression or interpretation of a topic with just seeing the words was totally wrong. So it's quite difficult to interpret. And also like topic modelings are stochastic. That means that if you rerun topic modelings, they will look slightly different always. So the topic can look slightly different. One goal is, of course, to have kind of stable topic modelings, and therefore it's very important to have the right parameters for it as well. Topic modeling, however, can really help to grasp the context of a document. Also find similar documents within a collection. So actually, I learned that topic modeling really worked well for this classification. That just like to actually learn more about the context, to make the machine actually learn more about the context of specific keywords that I'm using. So I was using the Gansim package. It's a Python package. It's actually the most used one, the train topic modeling algorithms. And it can be used in coding environments such as Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Notebooks are actually really convenient because it's a coding environment that allows to do code, but also allows to describe and explain what you're doing all in one, and you have like different columns. And actually, it's really nice, especially like as non-digital experts to work with, also to learn from and to use them. I'm just giving like one example. This is like a little example of a Jupyter notebook. Showing the function on topic modeling. So you can see there's some explanation, and then you can have the code. And it's actually quite easy to use with the Gansim library, which gives you all the parameters and the function. And once you have like imported your corpora, it's actually quite forward and easy to work with. And yeah, so it's just showing like how the Corpus, the topic modeling algorithm here was trained. This was basically the function to train it, and then here it's just like an example where you print basically one of the topics. Here I have topic 20, and then you have the words and also like how often or how important they are basically within this topic. You can also see you choose the number of topics and you choose the chunk size, and then you have the dictionary, and basically all of this comes along with the Gansim library. And I basically used Jupyter, or only used Jupyter notebooks for my methods, which were really convenient, also because you can share them with other people, and they can maybe reuse it and adapt them, and actually just try to learn from the code and the descriptions. That's also mainly how I used to learn that, just by learning of others. And so going back to the first case study, just to remind you, it was the one on return migration. I used topic modeling there to find the right context. So if you remember, there I had the problem with the Rückwanderung, return migration, just one example, which had very different meanings in different contexts. So what I did first was, of course, I was training a corpus. I like creating a training corpus, which means I was like manually collecting relevant articles and irrelevant articles. So I chose the number 3 for relevant and the number 0 for not relevant. And I was just like manually creating this collection and annotate it with the numbers I was just mentioning. So I would just imagine an Excel file with the text and metadata or CSV file, and then you have like the information. Number 3 means it's relevant, and number 0 it means it's not relevant. So I created a corpus like this, and I was importing it to the Jupyter notebook, and my goal there was to train a model that can distinguish well between the relevant and non-relevant articles. So as you can see here in this figure, the numbers you can see here in the blue circles, there are the topic numbers. So like each text basically, or each topic basically is presented by a number. And I was trying to find out, I actually trained a model that distinguishes very well between the relevant and non-relevant. And as you can see here, there's like quite a lot of topics that are only related to non-relevant and others that are only related to relevant. And some, of course, are overlapping, but the goal is to try to have as least overlapping as possible. So yeah, there's topics that are actually really clearly connected to the relevant and some to the non-relevant. And I'm not going like too much into detail because I also have like the Jupyter notebook is here where you can just like read exactly everything how it was done. Because not going like to every detail, but the goal was, the further goal was also, once I had like this, I had like topics that were very well distinguished between each other. I was trying to compare the articles. So basically, this was the training corpus, but then I was using a testing corpus also with the information on the relevancy, but they were unseen so far. So I was actually trying to compare them, and the more similar, for example, a topic the distribution was to one of those topics, the more likely was that this article was selected also as non-relevant. Yeah, just showing you one of the results. The results were actually quite good. So I was up to 90% of correctly selected articles in the end, and this has been done all automatically. So this is not something that I did manually. So here you can see basically this was automatically selected. This part was automatically selected as relevant text. This is non-relevant text, and this is basically the control function here. So this is the annotation. So those who are annotated as 3, I actually decided they are relevant, and those as 0, I decided they are not relevant. And you can see it actually here. The zeros are selected as non-relevant, and the most 3s here are selected as relevant. Of course, there are also some, that are not selected correctly, but it's not so much. And actually, for me, it was something that I thought this is actually good enough to be used. So far to the first case, and then to the second, I just realized it should be 2 here. But yeah, then to the second case study, I also used topic modeling there, as I already said. But now I wanted actually to classify them. So in the clippings on immigration, like here you can see advertisement, appeals, crime, for example, culture, literature. So actually, I also here was creating a training corpus, and I was just like, I think about 600, I was collecting about 600 articles and annotate them, like 1 was advertisement, 2 was appeal. So I was also giving them numbers and annotating them. So I decided which article belongs to which category. And here I actually use topic modeling because I wanted to find out what are the most typical words that are represented by the categories of discourses here. Also here, the Jupyter notebook is here, and also not going like too much into detail, but here you can like read the whole process. And yeah, so just to give you also here an example, it's a little bit small, but I guess you can make it a bit bigger. So this is just like I was training the topic modeling. Training a model then to automatically distinguish between the categories that I chose. For example, this looks up to the top words from top topics from the articles that belong to the category advertisement. This is now the corpus that I trained, that I created for the training. So with topic modeling, I actually extracted the most important words for ads. They're in German, but I tried to translate some of them. So you can see very important words that were found for advertisement. Were looking for English, French, because they were offering courses, language courses for people that wanted to emigrate to English-speaking or French-speaking countries. Our market, cheap selling or telephone number. So you can see it's words that actually are very well connected to the advertisement. The same then with news, the category which I called news. They have like ship, steamer, Libya, ministry, million, Armenian, home flag, Ottendorf, which is a place name, France and Vienna. And here you can see it's very much about like place names, and less about verbs or adjectives. It's about politics. It's about it's more nouns also, which is quite typical for news. Then, for example, the articles on culture, which had typical words like children, or paper, alone, Victor, Frank, despite, reading, coming, holding, already. So you can see there's more like verbs and adjectives, and also names, person names, stuff from family. So this is quite different also to the most typical words I got like for news. And finally, also on the most prominent words on crime, like arrest, big, gendarmes, agents, report, lead, apartment, and hand over, are also quite typical for crime. So actually topic modeling was able like to extract, like to create topics that seem to be also for the human reader quite typical for those categories, like for those specific discourses. And the goal then was to use this model on the training corpus. So I trained the model on my training corpus, and to use this model then on unseen articles to actually to find out which of these unseen articles belongs to which of those categories. So most likely the one of those of these categories, which in the end actually made it possible to actually select articles for specific categories, and also to have a clear picture how which category of discourse is like most dominant or less dominant. So here, for example, is the finance discourse, or the crime discourse, the news, and then the literature. The smallest one is advertisement. And what's interesting for me, or very helpful for me, is within those classification, I was able then to extract the finance discourse, for example. And then once I had this one very own subcorpus on finance, I was able to look further into this. Of course, you can imagine that not every classification was correct, but the overall picture actually was quite correct, also like after quite a lot of close reading. And this is already almost the end of my presentation. Just some limitations. I was already mentioning, like one important problem. Maybe it's not a problem, but difficulty is that many libraries that have digitized newspapers don't have article separation yet. So this makes it actually quite difficult to even like create corpora by using article separation. So there's a few libraries, but it's not something that is standard yet. Which still makes it possible. For example, I was talking about the annual interface for the Austrian historical newspapers. So there is no article separation at all. I was able to use article separation because within the NewsEye projects, we had like a separate interface. We called it the demonstrator, and there we also had article separation. So so we had this special interface, which even made it possible to do this work. Otherwise, it would be impossible. And of course, keywords are still necessary. So even though like these digital methods of, especially this natural language processing methods I was presenting, they are using the context of the whole articles, I still need keywords. I mean, even to create the training corpora, I need keywords. So it's still a problem to find good keywords. Still something that, yeah, is necessary, and finding similar articles without like these trigger words. We have tried it within the NewsSci project, but it did not really work out so far. And also manual annotation is necessary. So the training was necessary because this was like for my very own sort of very specific research questions. So I needed to decide what is relevant and what is not relevant. So I kind of had to feed the algorithm with the information that were important to me. But in relevance, like with collecting articles manually, creating this manual annotated corpus is just like, it's kind of convenient because it will take you maybe a day to create this corpus, and it will take you months to manually extract thousands of articles. And so far to the limitations, there might be some more, but these were the most important for me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Sarah. That was an amazing presentation, absolutely fabulous. And it's what is also is, I think you have had the most number of questions in one of these sessions. So there were lots of popping up all the way through. So thanks very much. So let's have a look. If I scroll back up to the top. Now it's not letting me do that for some reason. Let me try again. So my chat has been funny all day, so I'm going to try and scroll back up to the top of the questions. Okay, so afraid the first one is from me. We have been working a lot on corpus building in Belgium and which newspapers to choose. We found this very difficult. For example, we needed to know about the history of the newspaper. So, for example, is it Catholic? Is it socialist, liberal? Did you have a similar issue? And if so, how did you go about that?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Yes, very similar issues, because it's still something that is missing in many libraries, is basically this metadata or context with the newspapers. So very often this is missing out. It's something that was just not thought about, that it could be important for researchers, that they need this kind of information. So actually the Anno platform has some of the information, but not like connected with the newspaper. You kind of have to go down a page and you have to find it. But it was something that took a lot of time to just like check if the full newspaper is even here, if actually all the issues are here. It's impossible. It was really, really difficult, or even impossible, to check those things. Are like all important newspapers here, which could be missing out. So there was also no information on what is missing out, basically. And it can be important for researchers just to know, for this specific region, we don't have the newspapers, or for this specific time frame, we don't have the newspapers. So this is actually something that we always had to create somehow manually, that they did not just come along with the interface. And something that we actually were mentioning from the very beginning in the project, it would be really important that an interface is actually providing those information. But yeah, hopefully sometime.
That's reassuring. It wasn't just us.
No, yeah, it's a big issue, actually, yes. And it would be so helpful for researchers. It's just,
something to definitely think about including. So the second question comes from Patty. So how much general it's related, in fact, how much the general metadata that the library decides to capture is helpful in the building the corpus? Do you think work could be done to facilitate this process?
Yeah, I think it's kind of answered already.
Mm-hmm. I think so, yes, it kind of links on. A next question from Gustavo. We are working on corpus creation and evaluation. Regarding quality, how do you measure the representativeness of sources?
Actually, long, very, very long process of close reading. So this is the one thing that actually really works well, because first, if you close read, you get a feeling for the corpus. You also get a very good feeling once actually you do not find anything new anymore. So actually what I always try to do is read as much as possible and stop when I have the feeling now there's just repetition anymore. So this is for me then the point where I feel like, okay, now the quality is achieved. So it's never something like 100% quality and never something like 100% representativeness, but it's just it's the saturation actually. At some point when things start to repeat, you can kind of be sure now it's you found the most important information. Also, like sometimes I use just word clouds or even like background word clouds to have a big picture to see, oh, this actually looks kind of correct to me, and this looks actually a bit weird. So yeah, this like from close, but also from distant, there's some ways. Yeah. I would actually be interested what they use or what is.
Yes, Gustavo, have you had some measures for representativity of the sources?
Well, I have been working on this and I wanted to have something to define this criterion, but I was hoping to find something automatically, but I guess it's something very difficult to achieve. And well, at the moment I'm working on a paper and I just wanted to know how you did this or how did you measure this. And well, thank you for your work and keep working on this.
Thank you. Yeah, I possibly there is something that could do it automatically, which I actually honestly would not know about, but maybe.
Some collaboration opportunities there.
Right.
So then, Ben, which kind of relates to what you just said about this close reading. So to what extent is this a circular process? Do you often find additional keywords during the close reading stage after the corpus creation? And if so, would you actually repeat the process of adding new keywords, I think?
Yes, definitely. I for sure forgot how often I repeated the whole process because I was actually when you train when you create a training corpus, you try to cover like different time periods, different topics, like everything that you can find. But often then in the close reading or checking results, I was figuring out, oh, these articles are always selected wrongly. And the reason was because it was not covered in the training corpus. So actually I was redoing the corpus building or just adding those articles and then redoing the process until actually I had the feeling now it's not getting better anymore.
Great. And then another question from Patty. So she says, I'm conscientious you are I'm conscientious you are a historian, so might not know the answer. I don't know either. But she was still going to ask the question, do you happen to know how much relatively new developments in NLP, like transformers, could facilitate carrying out queries that take into account semantics rather than just keywords? Have you had an experience with this NLP transformers?
Not really, no. I myself only tried topic modeling and word embedding as for like the semantics, but I have no experience, but I have to write it down. Is it something that I should remember?
Patty, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I really think so. I mean, Paul here might want to add something to it. I'm pretty sure he knows about this. But I mean, yeah, I think it's something that is we should look for, particularly for your example, you know, on returning home or returning migration, basically.
How was it called again?
Transformers.
Transformers. Okay.
Yeah, like the robot kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think Ben wants to add something.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I said Ben wants to add something.
So, sorry, Paul, you go first.
Oh, cheers, Ben. Yeah, I mean, look for any of the tools named after Muppets. So things like Bert.
Yeah.
And Elmo. So Bert pretty much has changed the way that a lot of NLP tasks get done, and the accuracies have gone up. So there may be some things there that you could look at. I'd just be a little bit cautious about how well it copes with the historical text. You'd probably have to retrain it.
Yeah, actually, birds was something that in the project also we worked quite a lot with. The problem often is because we were working with German and Finnish corpora, bird is excellent in English, not as excellent, unfortunately, sometimes in other languages. That's sometimes the problem. So topic modeling for me was more language independent.
Yeah.
But yeah, bird is great.
Brilliant. And anything named after Muppets sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Ben, did you want to add a comment there?
Yeah, I think Paul's covered that. I think that the language thing makes it harder.
Yeah.
I've played around with transformers a bit, and they will give you an overall sense of a corpus. So, but there's so much other training data behind them, even when you fine tune them. Working out exactly why it's come up with a certain answer can be basically impossible. So it might be a way of going alongside your close reading to say, oh, I could look for these ideas, but you also got to be really careful that it's not something from Reddit. So.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks.
Great. Yes, and historical language. You've got different languages, and then the sort of history of them as well. Sorry, I've now lost where we are. There's so many questions. It's fantastic here, and they're just jumping around here. Right, stole my question. So some nice comments. So question from James. In the German language papers, have you had to deal with many examples of copy and paste articles where an article about a return migrant is, for example, reused in various newspapers?
Yes, a lot. Actually, really a lot. So often like articles that had contents like yesterday 3,000 return migrants from America returned. So like this information, they were like, I was counting sometimes, actually reused in different newspapers up to like 20 times. So sometimes I was like 20 times finding the same articles. Yeah, basically. And I was, of course, including all of them. But what I actually did when I go then to qualitative analysis and do my discourse analysis, I will actually, not treat them all as separate articles, because that would actually kind of screw my analysis. So yeah, but I had it a lot. I was surprised how much there was reusage of articles.
Very interesting. A bit like these press releases they send out from the
exactly.
agencies. Yeah,
exactly.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And this is a question from Ben. If someone wanted to try and carry out your research in other countries or contexts, how does the particularities of the German language, such as return migration, having its own world, influence this work compared to other languages? I can imagine this would be a lot harder to do in English for many of the reasons you mentioned, such as lack of single keywords.
I did not try it in different language, though. I would like to. I mean, topic modeling is language independent, so it's not depending on a language, as long as it depends very much if the contexts are very different. I was using it in other contexts too. For example, I had the word cancer in German is Krebs. It means cancer, but it's also a last name. Krebs, very common. It's an animal. And zodiac sign too, so it can be quite a lot. And I actually wanted to find out if I can articles that talk about the illness cancer using Krebs in this sense, and that worked very well too. So if the the context is actually different enough to distinguish the words between those different meanings or different contexts, then I could imagine it works in any language. But to be honest, I haven't tried it out with another language.
Yeah, that's very interesting to see if how that would work, and it's good to know that topic modeling is language independent. So that's
right.
Interesting. And then you've got some nice comments on the nice job on your Jupyter notebooks from Gustavo there, and a lot of likes on that one.
Thank you very much.
Another question from Ben. You mentioned you mentioned the importance of heuristic approach at the start. How does having to pre-select keywords for search and topics for topic modeling fit into this approach? So I suppose it's the combination of the keyword search and then combining that with the topic modeling.
I'm not 100% sure if I totally understood the question. I mean, what exactly the question is.
Ben, do you want to add? Perhaps you can describe your own question better than me.
Yeah. I think you've already answered this, Sarah. It was more around heuristics as you exploring the data, but then if you're almost pre-selecting keywords before you start, what will you learn? But you said you've done it iteratively, so that makes sense. And
okay, great.
Topic, so yeah, that's great.
Thanks, great.
And that was a related question from me. You described the many different ways of doing the corpus creation, and I just wondered how long it takes in terms of time. Obviously, when you've got your Jupyter notebooks, that can help speed things up. But is it from start to finish? If you were going to create a new corpus, is that 2 weeks, 2 months, or have you got a feeling?
Yeah. It actually, with the Jupyter notebook done, it was quite fast, because once I had my training corpus and everything, I could just use it on a huge collection afterwards, and that worked quite fast. Of course, then starts the process of close reading again, manually sort things out, maybe redo it. But this is a question of weeks, probably, but it took me 2 years to actually come up with the notebooks. So this was basically a very long process of creating a collection that I not perfect, because as I said, like Anno has no article separation, so we have this limited version in the news context, but I still can't have like all the articles which are in the Anno interface, and I guess I have to wait until there's some reformation on the interface and they have article separation. So still not so easy, unfortunately.
You've created a great framework to make it easier. Patty, I don't know if you are still here. I can just see before you jump to the other meeting. Are you still here, Patty? She did have to jump under. Yeah, she just had to jump to the other meeting because she wanted to make a short announcement. Paul, a question from Paul. So we've never had so many questions. This is fantastic. Really, everybody's very engaged. So Paul asks, regarding measuring representativeness, you could also consider the work of Doug Bieber or Adam Killegriff, and he's put a link into the chat. Paul, do you want to say a little bit more about, give the context?
Yeah, it was kind of a response to Gustavo's question, I think. So Doug Bieber kind of defined representativeness in corpus linguistics many years ago, and Adam did quite a lot of work on comparing corpora and Weber's corpus with, seed terms and so on. So quite similar to what you'd done. So there may be some measures there that you could look at. And he's got a wonderful paper, Language is Never Ever Random, which kind of, it is a lovely paper to read and, think about. There's probably never a perfect solution to this, right?
Thank you so much. I already copied the link, so thank you very much for the tip. This is great. I'm always very thankful for some tips for literature.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Well, I think that is now all the questions. So thank you very much indeed for a fascinating talk and for answering those huge number of questions. So that's fantastic news. I just want Patty had to leave for her next meeting, so I can't give any details, but she said they're organising a DH week at the beginning of next term. I don't know, Catherine, do you know anything more about this DH week?
I don't know any specifics either, I'm afraid. I think it might be something that's a hybrid event. I'm not entirely sure though, so I won't make promises.
Yes. So watch the space. I think some invitations will be going out soon. And
Yes.
What we were saying was we've got the Spatial Humanities Conference happening in September. And then we will come back sort of around September, October with the DH Hangouts again next year. So you've been a fantastic keynote at the end. Really wonderful to see so many questions. So thanks very much to Sarah. Thank you all very much for all the questions. And yeah, goodbye for this term.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Lovely to see you there. Thank you.
Same here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Everybody, thank you very much.